All right, cool. Welcome back, guys, to Meet Us After 7. This is episode 280. All right. How should I do the soundboard today? Do you mind doing the intro for me? As you're essentially Gina's stand-in.
Okay.
Right.
I thought she was going to zoom in.
You know what? Today, it's just going to be us three.
Okay.
Just going to be us three. All right. So you listen to the pod, right?
Yeah.
All right. Do your best Gina impression.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. No pressure at all.
But can I have the words?
All right. So
it's blast something, and this
you know
is
what?
Meet Us
I
After
always forget
7.
it. Hi, guys.
Yeah.
I'm your name.
Yeah.
And I'm here with Brent and Yusuff, and this is Meet Us After 7.
Hi guys, I'm Donna. I'm here with Brent and Yusuff, and this is Meet Us After 7.
Here you go. Nice one. Brent, can I get a little bit of aircon?
Mm-hmm.
Cheers. All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back. I have a very special guest in the building today. How would you like to be introduced? By your former stage name or by your real name?
Just say Donna, She Rockers.
Donna from the She Rockers. All right, but I'm going to let you intro yourself. Give us a bit of information, who you are, background, and then I'll say how this link up came to be, and then we'll go from there. All right, so you are Donna from the She Rockers. The She Rockers are...
We were a hip-hop group, all-female hip-hop group, formed in the late 80s. One of the members was Betty Boo, who people might remember. And there was another girl called Aura, who's from South London, Antonia. And there was another girl called Dupe. There was a bit of a Destiny's Child situation going on.
Nice.
We were signed to Jive Records, and we made an album called Rockers from London. And we were part of the foundation of UK hip-hop that happened in the 80s and early 90s.
Oh, nice. And, okay, cool. So Donna was a part of Gina's Train to Slay group. And I believe, how did Gina find out about your history?
I think one of the girls who followed me on Instagram, I must have posted a throwback photo of me with Queen Latifah.
Great picture, by the way. I've seen that.
Thank you.
Great picture.
And that was taken in London, actually.
Nice.
Brixton Academy, backstage.
Nice.
And then, they just went searching for video and footage and stuff. And I told a few stories.
Yeah.
Also, Moni Love did an interview on the Breakfast Club.
I saw that. And she actually mentioned you, right?
And she shouted me out. Yeah. And that kind of triggered conversation as well. Yeah. Because I had introduced her to Jay-Z back in the day.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah.
We'll delve into that story too. Yeah. Gina obviously told me about Donna because Gina thought I'll be interested in your story, which I am. And you were surprised that I would care, but I'm you're very much engrossed in hip hop. So this is great for me. So first question is for you, how was it back in the 80s? Oh no, what year did you release your album?
I think we released the album 1990.
No, okay, cool. So how was it back then? Just the scene in the UK? How did you get into music? What was it like being a woman in that space, navigating your way through the industry?
I mean, that's a whole, that's about 5 questions. It was amazing because we were there right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'd always been into music and clubbing.
Yeah.
Kind of had been into soul music. But when I was about 14 or 15, I hung around with some guys from my estate and they played me some electro.
Where are you from, sorry? What was
White
it?
City.
White City,
Shepherd's Bush.
Okay.
I'm from West London.
West London, okay.
We're apparently very soft, according to that guy on Instagram.
The guy who does the people from whatever ends doing whatever. Yeah.
So I got into electro first and then it was kind of like African Bambaataa, so Sonic Force.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. There was this group as well. Oh God. The Rocksteady Crew.
Okay.
They made a hip-hop record which hit the charts and they actually came to London.
Yeah.
And they were a breakdancing crew that made a record. I think Malcolm McLaren produced a record.
Okay.
And then it was the whole Buffalo Girl. So I kind of really liked that music.
Yeah.
And got into that. And I went to school in Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith County School, and I heard that there was a girl there that liked hip hop music as well.
Yeah.
And we literally became friends because we both liked the same music. And she was Betty Boo.
It's funny how niche it was back then that you would just hear that one other girl from a school also liked hip hop. So you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Whereas now there's thousands of kids who like hip hop. So how do you find, this one particular girl likes hip hop?
Literally somebody told, I think it was a girl in my class who lived on the same road as
That's funny.
That's so random.
Okay,
and she was in a year below me.
Okay.
So I knew who she was, but I'd never spoken to her before that point. And we literally became friends because we both liked hip hop.
Okay.
And her brother was really into hip hop. And he knew a DJ. And he was a white guy. He lived a couple roads away from him.
Yeah.
And we literally just started going to his house.
Yeah.
And he would play beats and stuff. And we started writing our own raps and that was it
from
really.
there.
But the scene at that time, I wasn't really a part of it. But from a club that we used to go to, we met Rodney P.
Okay, yeah.
Who was a part of the hip hop scene at that time.
Yeah.
He was known as Roddy Rock when we met him. And he was kind of more, he hadn't become London Posse Rodney yet.
Yeah.
He was just like us, really, just a London bod trying to be into hip hop, dressing like Americans.
Yeah.
And we started hanging out with him. And then you got to know about the hip hop raves through word of mouth. That was it. It was like a network. Once you got to know one person, Rodney was from South London.
Yeah.
And he knew everybody. I mean, we were from West London and the few people that were into hip hop, I already knew them.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like the pioneers from West London. But Rodney knew everybody. So he kind of introduced us to the hip hop scene.
Yeah.
And it was formed really around people that danced, people that DJ'd, and people that rapped. And people that did graffiti. You know, they call it the 4 pillars of hip hop, but it literally was that.
Yeah.
So everybody that was a part of the scene actually did something in the scene.
Yeah.
And you just learned about the hip hop jams through word of mouth. And then we got to know the DJs. Some of the early hip hop DJs that I knew were part of Kiss FM, who went on to, they were the pirate station, Kiss FM, then they went to form the legal one. And obviously we heard about Westwood. There was a guy called Dave Pierce. So whoever you knew that played hip hop, you would just go to their raves.
Okay.
And it was few and far between.
Yeah, I can imagine.
At that point. But there were also clubs in the West End that played hip hop. So we would go to the hip hop clubs, but you weren't allowed to wear trainers to go in.
Yeah.
So we sort of dressed the part on top and take the trainers in the bag.
Yeah.
Or we'd go to a mud club and there was a DJ there called Mark Moore. And he went on to form S Express. I don't know if you remember that group.
I've heard of them.
They were like a pop group. But he would play a lot of hip hop and, you know, we would all just congregate at those sort of clubs. There's another guy called Philip Salon and he's basically one of the real faces of London clubland. And he had a couple of club nights that we used to go to. I mean, he ran Mud Club as well.
Yeah.
But he's kind of famous in UK sort of nightclub history.
What's your earliest memory of when hip hop first made it over here?
I would say do you mean UK hip hop or American hip hop?
No, so both to be fair. So American hip hop. So what was your intro to US hip hop? And then being that you were around, I would say at the genesis of UK hip hop, what were the first things that were happening where it became
I guess
a point of interest?
There was a club in the West End called Astoria.
Yeah.
Where a lot of US artists used to come and perform there. A lot of the early people before they became really famous, like the Beastie Boys performed there.
Okay.
Salt and Pepper performed there. There was an artist called Schoolie D. And we saw Salt and Pepper perform there. And it was seeing them that was the lightning bolt. It's like, okay, so we can do this. We were already starting to write raps.
Okay.
And just do it in the bedroom and stuff. We were like, oh, we could actually do this. We could perform this. And I think we actually made our way backstage that night and talked to them. And, you know, they gave us encouragement and stuff. And we just went
Was it easy for you just to get backstage just as a regular?
We would always find our way backstage.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we always rolled with like a big group of people. And you got to know people on the doors, or you got to know the layout of the clubs. We'd always end up backstage. I ended up backstage at Brixton Academy a few times, and Public Enemy, they came over to do a show at Hammersmith Apollo. Yeah. And that was another like life-changing sort of night for hip-hop. And a lot of people that were in UK hip-hop went to see them. And I think we got tickets from like our youth club or something for a £5, and we went, and the show was just incredible because I had the album. My friend had actually recorded it on tape. I don't know if you remember tapes.
I remember tapes.
And when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. You know, like when you hear something and it doesn't even make sense to you, but you know it's wicked. Yeah. And I was like, I have to meet this group. Yeah. Like, I have to meet this group. I think, you know, we were very early in the sort of genesis of wanting to rap and stuff. So went to this show, me, Betty Boo, a couple of my guy friends. The show was incredible. Then we decided we were going to go and try and track them down. A lot of their hip-hop acts used to stay at the Hilton Hotel, which was at the top of Shepherd's Bush, or Holland Park, if you want to be posh. And so we went there, and there was somebody at the door. I don't think they would let us actually in the hotel. And then we saw like Rakim coming out, and then LL came out. But they weren't there. Someone said they went to get food. So we were like, okay, well, we'll just give up on that. Let's just go and get some food. We went to McDonald's. When we went to McDonald's, we saw the S1Ws from Public Enemy. And there were the soldiers that would be like dancing on the stage.
Oh, okay.
And with them was Professor Griff. So we started talking to them and we were like, yeah, we rap. I think I must have been like 17 then. And he's like, oh, you rap? All right, hold on 1 second. And he got out his video camera. And he's like, okay, rap for us. And so we started rapping. I was being a bit shy, but he filmed us, and that footage is actually on YouTube. So whenever people find out that, you know, I used to rap, they always find that footage. Somehow Westwood got that footage, and he's got his whole logo over it and everything. And that was how we met Professor Griff, who we then ended up working with, and he produced our first single, which was on a label called Music of Life. Okay. Which was called Give It a Rest.
Nice. And what year was this?
That was, I think, 87. I mean, I'm not like super clear on dates, but it was the 80s. Okay. And that wasn't the first thing that we did, but that, I think, was the thing that put us on the map. Yeah. Because A, it was Professor Griff from Public Enemy. Yeah. And B, he produced the record, and the record did sound good. Okay. We never signed like an album deal with that record label, but we did that as a one-off. Okay. But I will sort of slightly rewind, because when we came into the scene, the Cookie Crew were the female group that were out there that people knew.
What, from the UK?
From the UK.
It's funny because I don't know any UK hip hop acts from the 80s at all.
Really?
At all.
That's why I was saying I'm shocked that you would be interested, because I know there's that kind of real.
Well, to be fair, she was throwing in a few, because you two were talking about some relationships that were happening between different
and
rappers and stuff.
Yeah.
So she was feeding me that info as well. So that was also something I wanted to delve into, if you can.
Yeah.
But because I don't have any knowledge of any rappers from the UK, that's why I was so intrigued, because my earliest memories of, like, you know, the forefathers, so to speak, of UK hip hop are like, you know, Rodney P and even newer people like Black Twang, and anything past that, I'm oblivious to it.
So Rodney P and London Posse, they were a part of what I was a part of. Yeah. So at that time, the groups that were really a part of the UK hip hop scene.
Yeah.
Well, there was a guy called Nutriment. He was one of the. He's considered like the godfather. I know I'm gonna mess this up, so all you elders don't come for me. There was a group called the Demon Boys.
No idea.
They're from. Yeah, that's London
Brent has
Pussy.
just pulled out a record, the London Pussy record.
Yeah.
Vinyl.
Demon Boys are from, I think, North London.
Okay.
There's Hijack, who are from South London.
Yeah.
They were really strong.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of. Obviously,
Cookie Crew.
Yeah.
Derek B. Duke.
Yeah.
See Duke. There was Wee Papas. I mean,
yeah,
there was a load of people.
Did you find that, obviously being a woman and being a rapper, did you find that you weren't being taken seriously at the beginning, or were you just welcomed with open arms, or did you find that it was a bit of a struggle?
I mean, there was definitely, a lot of sexism.
Yeah.
And I think what we found was the eyes sort of came on us quite quickly.
Yeah.
So then people did attribute that to us being female.
Okay.
Which may have been, I'm not saying that it wasn't true,
Yeah.
because obviously music industry, they want women to be there to be eye candy.
Yeah.
But we weren't there to be eye candy.
Yeah.
Because at that time, you never wanted to really be seen as sexy.
Okay.
So it was the opposite to what's going on now. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I try to make myself look like a complete man, but the way that we dressed,
Yeah.
which was kind of natural to us anyway.
Yeah.
It was, jeans and trainers, wore a bit of makeup, yes,
Yeah.
but you were never trying to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to be a pin-up or...
Once you signed, was it Jive you said?
Yeah.
Once you signed to Jive, did they try to change your image and try to make you more sexy and
No.
try to sell sex at all or no?
They didn't really.
Okay.
They wanted to change our music, and that was a difficult thing.
To what?
Because the Cookie Crew had success with a house track.
Yeah.
So there was this genre called hip house, which was rapping over house music, basically.
Yeah.
So that was the direction they really tried to push us towards, which is what was difficult about being in the music industry, because it was a real struggle to try and make the music that you actually wanted to make.
Yeah.
Because, they wanted you to hit the pop charts, because they saw that Cookie Crew had that kind of success,
Yeah.
which was kind of accidental, I think, even for the Cookie Crew, or it was something that, again, maybe their record label had pushed them to do. And I don't think they really loved the record themselves, because for them, it didn't really represent hip hop either.
Okay.
So we had that pressure, but the sexism was just the sexism that existed in society at the time. But at the same time, the hip hop community was quite strong, and there were a lot of really cool characters among the dancers and the DJs and just people that loved the music. So we all moved as one, even though as a family we had our fights and we had our infighting. Like we did have like a major beef with the Cookie Crew, because it was like they were first, and it was, it was that respect thing. Or, we're first, you lot have just come along, you need to pay your dues type thing. And we were like, pay what dues?
Yeah.
Like we just want to make our music. We just want to rap. But it got so deep that because they were from South London and most of the hip hop scene was from South London, everybody was kind of like with them because they knew them first. And we were kind of, a bit alone. And it was even to the point where if a guy kind of liked me, but he was from South London, someone might have a word in his ear. That's how deep it got.
Was that just within the industry, or just life in general?
Just within the hip hop community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
go on, sorry.
It was to us at the time, it was kind of like life or death. Like you go to a hip hop jam and they'd be standing over there and we'd be standing over here.
Yeah.
But if you went to a hip hop jam and they weren't there, then it'd be like the hip hop jam was dry because they weren't there.
Yeah. So
because you couldn't stare at each other across the room.
How much did American culture really influence you guys?
I mean, initially, massively.
Yeah.
Because we liked the music, and then there was a whole look that came with it. And, it was all about having the trainers that certain rappers wore, the people in the US all wore these goose down jackets, the leather sort of b-boy jackets. So you had to have one of those. You know, you had to wear Kangol because LL wore Kangol. And also with the way that you rhymed as well. You had the stupid American accent initially because we were just copying. And I was thinking about this last night, but, you know, I'm Jamaican and I grew up with reggae music.
Yeah.
But I also grew up with soul because my mum, you know, she liked a lot of different music. But we were the first generation that were born here. And we hadn't really established our UK identity.
Yeah.
So it was in the very formative years. Other people that were making music, if they were making like reggae music, you know, they had the Jamaican identity.
Yeah.
But people that weren't making reggae music hadn't really quite formed the UK identity. So when we heard this hip hop music, but it was black people making it, we kind of adopted that initially. And then when London Posse, as they developed and they did rhyme in their own accent, Demon Boys used more of a toaster style rapping. So it was more Jamaican.
Okay.
And it was like, yeah, they sound amazing, you know. But even though I'm Jamaican, I've never really spoke patois like that because my dad discouraged it from when I was young. So patois was something that I had to learn. So I didn't have the patois voice. It wasn't authentic to me to rap in that because I had always been discouraged against speaking patois.
Patois,
So it was an interesting thing. But as we developed as artists, we would use more of our own slang. Even if we still had a little bit of a US twang, we would just use our own sort of words that our UK audience would know and would recognize. I mean, because obviously there's no point using American slang. You're not from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So just use your own words.
Do you feel like, you know, you guys from that era aren't really...
I love it when you guys say era.
Sorry.
No, I love it.
Yeah, or weren't really giving your flowers, so to speak, because, you know, when you see a documentary about, you know, UK hip-hop and it seems like they start from a particular year. They don't really talk about what happened in the 80s because this is all new to me and I'm someone who's very engrossed in it. So I'm like, I've never heard of you guys before. Do you feel like you've got your flowers?
I definitely feel like there's people in the community that feel like that. And obviously people like Giggs and Stormzy have spoken like in detail about what their influences were. And it generally starts from like So Solid and garage music. And, you know, I hear that. I've got a daughter, she's 28 and she, you know, her musical sort of, her relationship to UK music, it starts with grime and that sort of era. So she has really, the only knowledge she has of the music before that is because I was in it and her dad was in it as well. He was in a group called Syndicate.
Okay.
And I'm not really bothered about the whole flowers thing.
Yeah.
But I have noticed of late that it's popping up quite a lot.
Yeah.
With a lot of throwback video and clips are appearing on social media of my group. There was something from the BBC Archives. We did a kids TV show.
I think I saw that actually.
Yeah, and they posted that. And there's a picture of us from 1989 that Normski took. And it's me, Betty Boo, and Sweet Pea, who was one of the original members before we went through a lineup change. It was taken in Shepherd's Bush and we're sort of, you know, we're dressed in the gear that we were wearing at that time. And it's that photo pops up on social media all the time because it's seen as really representative of the culture, of youth culture at that time.
At that time, okay.
Because in the 80s, really, girls my age generally went to blues parties. So it was like box pleat skirt and shoes and big puffy hair.
Yeah.
We were kind of like the first generation that really embraced streetwear as our casual wear, especially for girls dressing like that. It was very new. I mean, obviously in the 50s in America, it was all like jeans and pumps, but the hip hop style was very specific. It was very, it was the genesis of streetwear as fashion. When we used to get on the tube and stuff, people used to look at us strange. There would be newspaper articles cussing sneakers and people that wore sneakers as like the most low class people.
Seriously?
Yeah. At that time, it was really
so was
just
sneakers
considered thuggish.
Were sneakers just exclusive to playing sports then? It wasn't something that people used to wear casually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Until we started wearing it like that. I remember I got my first pair of sneakers when I was in primary school.
Yeah.
Because before then, we used to get sneakers from like Marks and Spencer's.
So everyone's just out there just wearing shoes?
No, we used to wear trainers, but they were no-name trainers. They were like 4-stripe.
Okay.
From Woolworths or M&S. But, growing up on an estate, everybody had the same thing. It wasn't like, one person had the good trainers or loads of people had the good.
Yeah.
Everybody had the same. We didn't know that our trainers were whack at that point. But then, someone got a pair of really nice Adidas and it was like, oh.
I was going to ask actually, I was going to say at first, was this before, I'm not sure what year Adidas and Nike were introduced or what year they started, but was this before those brands were introduced to, I don't know, this particular market?
Yes, it was. It was, because it was when I was in primary school, so it was a good...
Is it cool for you to say around what year this is?
Yeah, I left primary school in 1980. I started secondary school in 1980.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And my first pair of name brand trainers were a pair of Adidas. I think they were called Adidas Bermuda. And then I got a pair of Nike Bruin, which were white and they had a red tick.
Yeah.
And then they brought out Wimbledon, I think, around the same time. So they were like the first.
Yeah.
I think Adidas was definitely around, but we hadn't really seen it.
Okay.
But Nike was new.
Yeah.
Nike was fresh.
All right. For our YouTube watchers, can we say how old you are?
Yeah.
All right. You are...
I'm 52.
52 years old.
Yeah,
and you look very young for your age. Because even right now, when you're talking, I'm like, you said you were in primary school in 1980.
Yeah.
I'm like...
Oh, thank you.
But you look like you're in your 30s.
Well, thank
you. What's your secret?
What's my secret?
What's your secret? So this youthful look.
Business. It's genetics. It's just family, innit?
Okay.
I honestly I can't take credit for that.
Yeah. It's just the age-old saying the black don't crack, right?
I'm blessed. That's what I would say.
Okay.
I'm blessed, It's funny because I used to travel to America a lot when I was younger. I first went to America when I was 18. We went to see Professor Griff.
Okay.
And that was an interesting trip. So we went there, we stayed with him. Public Enemy were doing some shows and stuff. And we drove to a show with them to Delaware, which is near Philadelphia. And that's where we first met Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff.
What was that like, me, Will and Jazz back then?
It was really cool. I'm not sure if I'd heard... I think we must have heard like one of their records at that point.
Yeah.
So, we knew that they rapped and stuff. But at that time, that's what it was like. If you were involved in hip-hop and then the hip-hop artists would come over, you would just get to meet them.
Yeah.
And
I guess because the scene was so small at the time, so niche and new, it was very just open and welcoming. Whereas now it's like red tape everywhere. So
yeah, exactly. You just wouldn't be able to get backstage or, meet people like that. And then Will Smith, he actually asked out Betty Boo.
Okay.
And they went on a date, but I don't know
what happened.
It didn't really go anywhere. But,
okay.
So that was a bit random. Then I would always see him. He was signed to Drive as well.
Okay.
So then I would see him at the offices in the US, or like when he came over. And I got completely sidetracked there, but it's not important. But what I was going to say was that I used to buy a lot of beauty products and stuff. And then one day I just sort of looked at my mum and
Yeah.
I thought, my mum's got really good skin. You know?
Yeah.
I don't actually need all
Need
this
that
stuff.
stuff. Okay. Yeah.
So just a bit of a random aside.
Nice. All right. So how did you end up getting signed to Jive Records?
Well, like I said, we got eyes on us quite soon.
Yeah.
Because we got to know Westwood through Betty Boo's brother and this DJ, Streets
What was,
Ahead.
sorry, to interrupt
30.
you.
He was 30 at the time.
Who, Westwood?
Yes.
I wasn't going to ask his age, but...
Oh, okay.
Oh, what, he was 30 at the time?
I don't know. I have no idea.
35.
I was going to say, because obviously Westwood's been around for yonkers, isn't it? So I was going to ask, what was he like back then?
I mean, he was really quite low key.
Okay.
And he would just be at a club night, maybe the table be in a corner, and he'd be DJing. And
because he's in his 60s, right?
yeah, apparently.
He's in 70s. I can Google it. I'm sure he's.
But because he played hip hop, he quickly got a following because not many people did play hip hop. We used to catch lifts from him as well, like after the club night.
You were 17 then, right?
Hmm?
You were 17 then?
Westwood's 64.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Did Westwood ever extend his arm out to you?
No.
Huh?
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
He didn't, no.
I'm surprised.
I mean, he didn't. He didn't.
You said you were too old.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, did any rapper of note, extend their arm?
One of the guys from Jungle Brothers, was interested in me at one point, and I knew Gangstar quite well.
Okay, that's Guru and DJ Premier.
Yeah. But it's quite funny actually because I got to know Africa from Jungle Brothers when I was in New York one time through my friend JC. And at that time, they hadn't really hit.
Yeah.
They hadn't had their hits yet. I got to know Tribe Called Quest then and and Gangstar. All just before they became famous. And Jungle Brothers came over to the UK to do a tour with Latifah, Chill Rob G, I think it was. And so when they came over, I was hanging out with them. I took Moni with me to meet them. I introduced her to Latifah. I introduced Moni to Jay-Z, Latifah, and Jungle Brothers. And Tribe Called Quest.
What year did you meet Jay-Z?
I think that was probably about 88 or 89.
You know that famous picture of Jay-Z in London?
With the car.
With the car.
That was
that the same
It was that time. It was
Okay,
that time.
Okay.
So I'll go back to Jungle Brothers in a minute, but when Jay-Z came over, he came over with a guy called Jazz. He was the one that had the record deal,
Jazzo.
And the record company were like, oh, these rappers are here. Do you want to go and hang out with them? And, just show them around.
Yeah.
And I brought Moni down. I was like, Moni, come and meet this guy, and introduced her. And she ended up hanging out with him more because I think she had more time. I didn't really have the time to hang out with him. So I literally only met him that one time. I really regret that. But that's how it goes. But and then I introduced her to Latifah and Jungle Brothers. And again, she had a bit more time and hung out with him a bit more than I did. And then it seemed like the guy Africa who had been making eyes at me was making eyes at Moni. And Moni liked him as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's cool. Because I came back after leaving her with them one day on the tour. And she was being really quiet. And then someone told me something. I won't reveal it here. But someone told me something. And then I just went to talk to her. I said, look, I didn't actually talk to her. I talked to him.
Yeah.
And I just said, I know you like Moni. And he's like, what? How do you know? I said, I'm not stupid. I said, it's fine. Just do what you need to do. I mean, he lived in America, so I didn't really feel like there was
anything that could come of it.
Yeah, anything. Serious. I wasn't going to do that whole long distance thing.
Yeah.
With, So, but they ended up staying together for a little while.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. That's so funny. A lot of our listeners are young. Not young, but...
I know.
I would say age range might be like 22 to like maybe 30 something. So all these names to them, they're going to be Googling like... they're going to be like...
The Jungle Brothers.
Who the hell are the Jungle Brothers? Professor Griffith. They're probably baffled.
Yeah.
All right. So when you signed to Jive, did you then relocate to the States or were you here?
No, we were here, but we would work out of the studio there was a studio in Harlem called Zomba, and it's like a world-class studio.
Isn't Zomba a label as well?
Yeah. I think Zomba's a publishing company.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of artists used to work out of there. And we just spent a lot of time in the studio. We worked with UK producers.
Yeah.
I had to look them up today because my memory not great. DJ Crypt and Mastermind, they were both from South London, actually. Crypt, he used to work with this guy, Merlin, who is the nephew of Smiley Culture. I don't know if you remember Smiley Culture.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And Merlin was he became quite a big artist. And then they also sent us to work with the producers in the US. And they sent us to work with this guy called Todd Terry. Now, Todd Terry was known for making house music. And this is what I was saying to you. Like, they were really trying to push us to do the house music thing. But what they didn't know about him was that he actually started off in hip-hop.
Yeah.
So when we went out there to work with him at his studio in Queens, we ended up making some quite good hip-hop tracks. And we didn't do any house music. We were out there, which worked out for us. We had, at the time, you don't realise, but all the studio time is costing you a load of money because it was a really expensive studio.
Curiosity. How much was it an hour to rent a studio back then?
Oh,
just I could do a price comparison.
I would say it was hundreds for that studio.
Or an hour?
Yeah.
Even in the 80s?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weren't you hearing that?
Because that Battery Studios was known even then as like a world-class studio. So it was money.
Okay. That's a lot still. I thought because it was maybe on the currency.
Because it was so long ago. Yeah, like £5.
No.
Yeah, no.
Nothing like that, but just, not £100 an hour.
No, yeah.
All right. And how long would you say your span of your career was?
I would say it was like 5 years.
Okay,
really.
so it was quick.
Yeah, it was quick. It was quick and it burned hot. But
it burned. What do you mean burned hot? Sorry.
It burned hot quickly.
5
as in,
years well.
Oh, it was like okay.
Yeah.
And would you say? Go on, sorry, you can say.
No.
I'm gonna say, did it end when it did because, you kind of reached your ceiling, or like what was it that kind of
I think
veered you to another path?
For the She Rockers, it was more about the personnel's desire, the group members' desire to make music.
Okay.
And I definitely found that within the group, the other members' desire didn't really match mine.
Okay.
Or their focus wasn't really on the music that I wanted to make. Like Betty Boo went off and she went and made pop music. And I had no idea that she wanted to do pop music.
Okay.
But then she did. She went and did pop music. And then the girl that I made the album with, Antonia, like just her drive to make music just wasn't as strong as mine.
Okay.
And also the industry was not supporting hip-hop music.
And
when I say industry, it's like the record labels. Yeah. And then plus, obviously, it was very difficult to get radio airplay. Like there was a big push for a track that we did called Jam It Jam to get in the charts.
Yeah.
Lots of interviews, lots of, TV appearances and stuff. And it only managed 53. So then after that, the record label are just like, either make these house music tracks or there's just no support. Obviously, there are other record labels, but by then the music was starting to move on to just house and it was the summer and love, and it was all about rave culture.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
That era.
yeah, you know, the people like London Posse, absolutely rate them because they pushed on and they continued. You know, there were a few artists from that time that just kept going, and then a few artists like Ty and Black Twang, they sprung up and they kept going.
I was gonna mention Ty and Black Twang. To me, they're way more in the future, right?
Yes, but they were around at that time.
Oh, were they around?
Yeah. They were part of the scene, but maybe a bit later. But I remember Ty on the scene.
Rest in peace, Ty.
As a dancer. Yeah,
rest in peace, Ty. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Oh, okay, because Black Twang and Ty, I would say probably just a bit older than me. And I'm in my 30s. So...
No?
No,
not just a bit.
Okay.
Well, how old are you?
36.
Huh?
36.
No, just making noise.
No, they're definitely a bit after you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, they weren't necessarily out at the same time as us, but they were on the fringes.
Like Black Twang, Skinny Man, Ty.
Yeah,
I would
kind of
group
like
them
the
together as like the next wave after, to be fair, the wave I never knew about, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting though. It's quite interesting. And if you don't mind saying...
Ty's music was amazing.
Yeah, no, I do like Ty. What did you do after you stopped making music?
After I stopped making music, I actually... At one point, I was in New York and I was planning to stay there and start a career as a solo artist.
Okay.
But just before I went to New York, I met my daughter's father.
Okay.
Well, I knew him anyway. I'd known him from the hip-hop scene. But
Yeah.
we started to get to know one another. And then I came back.
Oh, you came back, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And my daughter's 28.
Okay.
And then after that, I decided I wanted to go back to finish my education because when I started making music, I actually decided not to go to university. I studied up to A-levels.
Yeah.
But I'd become very absorbed by the music. And I was very lucky because my parents, they supported me. My dad he was a traditional like guy, but I was very, very fortunate because for that time, you're thinking about the 80s, when, you know, the roles for women was so narrow at the time. And sort of what a girl could be was so narrow.
Yeah.
My dad really supported my talents and my passion. He saw me as a person.
Okay.
And when I said I didn't want to go to university, my mum wasn't really happy.
Yeah.
But my dad was like, let her do it.
Yeah.
She'll come back to it.
Okay.
And he always kind of bigged me up and said, oh, you know, you have more than one talent. He never ever criticized the way I dress.
Yeah.
He never said, oh, why are you not more feminine? So, you know, I was just very, very lucky. But I had always wanted to be a journalist. From when I was about 11, I was always into news, current affairs and writing. I was terrible at maths. And I think I went to the library and did some research because we didn't have the internet. I went to the library and I looked up.
Actually, going to ask you about that, actually.
I looked up jobs you can do if you're good at writing.
Yeah.
And I saw journalists and I was like, okay, I want to do that. And I went, after I had my daughter, I went back to school.
Okay, nice. So yeah, go back to what you just said. How was it living in the age? Because obviously, no, I can speak to this as well because I never grew up with internet throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
But how was it living in the age when there was literally no internet, social media, everything was just books?
Yeah. Well, I love books, so that suited me. But for us at that time, we had like the 3 TV channels. Wow, I feel like a proper relic at the moment. But it's fine.
Oh yeah, because hold on, wasn't Channel 4 around back then?
No.
Because I know Channel 5 came around much later.
No.
So what?
We had when I grew up, there was 3 channels, but Channel 4 came.
So hold on, so BBC
when I was
1,
a teenager,
BBC 2,
was.
And then ITV.
Yeah.
That was it, and then Channel 4.
It was bad. And Channel 4 came much later.
Oh, okay. I thought Channel 4 was always a part of the four core. Sorry, the
Not
core
when
four.
I was young. I remember when
because I remember when Channel 5 launched.
Yeah.
I remember the whole rollout and okay, we got a new channel. It was like, oh my God, we got 5 channels now. I remember that era.
5 channels.
Yeah, I remember when it was 5. Yeah. Obviously, this is before I had Sky.
Yeah.
Even before Sky, I don't know if Sky was a thing here, but I do remember when I just had 4 channels. Then, oh my God, we're getting Channel 5. There's a new channel launching. And then obviously Sky came after that and whatnot.
I mean, we weren't like deprived for entertainment.
Yeah.
Obviously, that we had our like TV shows that we watched, but we lived for being outside.
Yeah.
Especially when you're growing up on the estate, it's not a lot of room in the house anyway.
Yeah.
So we just lived for being outside.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was all about playing football, riding bikes, skateboarding, roller skating, activities.
Yeah.
You know, and once the holidays came, I mean, my family, we never went away. We just never had the money to do it anyway. So we never went back home. My grandma lived in the UK anyway. I never had family to go back home to. But in the summer, you were just outside.
So who were the first people from your family to come to the UK? Your grandparents or your parents?
My grandma.
Okay. I always... Is it...
My grandma brought her children over.
Is it fair to say that Caribbeans came over to the UK way before Africans started coming over?
I don't know.
Because there aren't a lot of people I know whose grandparents live here. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
It's just their parents. Their parents were the first ones to come over.
Okay.
I don't know anyone whose grandparents live in the UK at all.
Right.
So it's interesting to hear someone who says your grandparents actually the ones who came over here first.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Do you,
right,
Brent?
Actually.
Do I know any African people
whose their grandparents are here?
No, but I do remember quite a few stories from my barber. Recalling his father talking about West Indians and Africans coming together to fight off the whites, racists, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't know who came.
Yeah.
Before. I'm assuming it's